Recently, I got into photography and video making. My father had this Nikon 1V1 laying around and I just picked it up. After tinkering it about a month, I learned so many things about photography, but I quickly reached this camera's limits and wanted to upgrade. My aim was to get a hybrid camera that I can learn both photography and video making with. Considering all the options from Fujifilm, Canon, Sony, Nikon, I went with the Fujifilm X-T200. In this video, I will show you the overview of the camera, I will show you some sample footage I took, and at the very end, I will give you my current thoughts about the camera. Without further ado, let's start the video. Let's start with a quick overview of the X-T200. First of all, the camera has a 24 megapixel APS-C sensor. It can record 4K videos at 30 frames per second, and for the slow motion shots, it can do 1080p 120 frames per second. It has a fully articulated flip screen, which is really helpful if you are recording yourself. Camera has also a microphone input, which you can plug a microphone directly inside the camera. Camera comes with USB headphone adapter, which you can plug directly inside the camera and listen yourself. Camera has also an eye autofocus, which is very helpful if you are capturing people. I bought this camera with 15 to 45mm kit lens and it is great. You can get really sharp images. To explain the video capabilities, I thought you could change some location and come here. The camera can capture 4K video up to 30 frames per second. If you want to hear the onboard audio of the camera, you can have a listen to it. Yeah, it's pretty bad and quality drops compared to iPhone Plus lav mic. I highly recommend, by the way, if you are getting into video making, to get a cheap lav mic. Far more better than any shotgun mic, far more usable, and you will get a lot less noise in your post-production. You will be thanking me because for researching this, I spent hours and hours, countless of hours, so you don't have to. I also wanted to add some vlogging test while working. Not working, walking. Camera is currently connected to a Job 8 tripod, and I'm currently using the 15-45mm kit lens, and I'm currently at 15 mils. You can see the image stabilization. I hope it could do a good job. I'm not gonna add any post-processing or stabilization in the post, and hopefully I'm not going to be overexposed because the sun is on my face. Obviously this camera doesn't have optical image stabilization, but hopefully the stabilization is also okay. So yeah, this is not a longer vlogging test, but this should give you an idea at least how this camera could be used for vlogging. I'm back at home and we can talk more about the photo capabilities of the camera. Prior to X-T200, I was using this Nikon 1V1 camera. Let me show you its sensor, okay? Its sensor is quite small and it is not really giving the best results compared to iPhones or modern phones. Their image quality is not that great and the conditions needs to be exactly the perfect thing, right? Back to the X-T200, I think this camera is great in any way compared to any modern phone. Since this has an APS-C sensor, the images are really sharp compared to any modern phones, and you can get really nice crops out of them without losing that much of image quality. So far, I use this camera in a lot of different conditions like landscapes, portraits, even wedding photography, or street photography. In every condition that I throw at it, the camera performed great. And compared to the Nikon 1V1, in this camera you have everything to be correct, but in X-T200 you don't need to be worrying about the settings, right? You just set your ISO, shutter speed, or use aperture priority mode, and you go out and just worry about the composition, not the exposure settings. And I think that is the key to get a nice picture. After I get into the camera, I firstly got into the photography and got this TT Artisan 35mm prime lens 1.4, I think for $70. Like, it's a really cheap price for a 1.4 fast lens. Of course, it's not the best quality, but with like f2.8 you can get really sharp images with a really nice depth of field. Before going into the final thoughts, I quickly want to thank you about watching this video, and if you want to support the channel, please subscribe and like this video. Let's continue with the video. Capturing photos and videos is great, but is it comfortable to hold or is it comfortable to use? One of the downsides for this camera for me is the size. The size is a bit smaller compared to X-T30 or X-T3 especially. So if you got into the larger cameras, this camera might be a little bit smaller for you, and holding the camera might not be very ideal for larger hands people. In addition to that, this camera has not that many buttons. You will pretty much find yourself going into the menu and change some stuff there. Considering the price of this camera, I think it is what we're gonna get. To give some credit to the Fujifilm, all the exposure related stuff are located on top of the camera, like all the XT series cameras, which means X traditional XT. Traditional means that all the exposure stuff are located on top of the machine and controllable by dials, like shutter speed, like aperture, like ISO. To quick tip to do X-T200 users, yes, you can change your ISO on top of the camera and the left dial by changing it from film simulation to ISO, which I'm probably showing you the setting right now on the screen. For ease of use, I think the menus are okay for a camera, and I could find anything I want. It's pretty easy to use. My dad has a X-T3 and that camera has a lot of settings, probably a lot difficult than this camera to change settings during the shoots, but actually that camera has a lot more buttons. Probably if you want to change any settings, you're gonna be assigning that setting to a button, and that's whole another discussion topic. And my final thoughts. So who is this camera for? I think this camera is great for amateurs who wants to get into photography and video making in budget. This camera supports all the Fujifilm X series lenses, considering all the options from Fujifilm itself or third-party ones. There are lots of options there. My current thought process buying this camera is actually I can buy this camera and the lenses that I actually wanted. Then I can ditch the X-T200, keep the lenses and get a better body, and I will be solid for a long period of time. At least that's before I got into another ecosystem and sell all my gear, and yeah. Apart from X-T200, there are a lot of options there, considering DSLR options or second-hand mirrorless options. Considering the DSLR options, I didn't want to go there, even though I could get better image quality easily, but I didn't want to trade that out with the heavy weight of the DSLRs. The camera with you is always the best camera. Also, I haven't gone with the second-hand mirrorless cameras, and the whole reason for that is I just got into photography. If there is a problem with the camera, I probably wouldn't understand before buying it. I kept it safe and bought this camera. If you have enough budget and don't care about flip out screens, maybe you can go out with the X-T30 or X-T3. They are both great cameras and give you better image quality than this. If you care about the flip out screens, maybe look at a more video oriented XS10, or maybe you can look at X-T4 if you have a lot more budget. Alright friends, this is all from my side. See you in the next video.